Hey, welcome to Movies Worth Talking About, where we talk and talk and talk about movies. I am John Carlos, and I am joined by...
Eddie! And was that a dig at me? Do you think I talk too much?
No, I think we talk too much,
Oh, okay, that's good.
but like in a good way, not a bad way.
Yeah.
Like the whole there was to me two premises to this show when we started it in the pandemic. One was for me to focus on positive things
Yeah.
because I'm just a giant fucking grump when it comes to bitching about movies. And two, like to capture the idea of like when you and I or just any friends, after a movie, you sit around maybe in the living room in a parking lot
Mhm.
and just fucking yap after the movie. So it is good that we yap and yap and yap. That's the whole point.
Yeah, it's like not bad because it'd be like somebody complaining, like, I get too many orgasms. And it's like nobody's gonna feel bad for you, like,
Yeah.
oh, so yeah. So we
Yeah.
talk too much.
We give each other movie eargasms too much.
Gasms.
And
All right.
hopefully some of you. So we're here to talk about Scream 2022
Five
slash
five
Five
cream.
Cream
Yeah.
slash Scream 5.
Yeah.
Um, and I honestly, I don't even know where to begin. I have too many feelings.
Okay.
Good,
Well,
because you and I have not talked about this
yeah.
in the year since it came out. It was like a not like a foolish thing to do, but like I have things that need to get out, and we've been saving it for the pod. And then like a year later, and now I'm just like ready to
You're all
fucking
built
burst.
up. You're ready to gasm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna just nut in my. I don't know. Let's just. Uh, I like the movie.
Me too. Me too.
Hey,
Elaborate, sir.
gosh. Elaborate. I think without before we get like into it,
Yeah.
I thought it was a really nice way to continue the franchise,
Mhm.
but with new directors that still managed to make it feel like a Scream movie,
Mhm.
but just slightly new enough that it felt like a new Scream movie.
Mhm.
But one of the best things about this movie is, and this is one of the better examples I've ever seen of this sort of thing, where it's like a love letter to the franchise.
Yeah.
It is a big warm embrace of a hug to Wes Craven, but it never ever once to me like stops the movie dead in its tracks to be like, hey fans, here's a thing for you.
Mhm.
It hits so many beats but without ruining the momentum or calling to attention to itself in a way that other, not just requels, but requels that are like celebrating the legacy of things really like can stop and like really milk the teat. And like even when I like it, I'm like, yeah, I get it, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
um
Recycling is a big thing.
yeah
But this movie does it, and I think it does it in an efficient way. Maybe an almost economical way, because I noticed them here and there. I don't know how many of them I noticed my first viewing. I was too busy enjoying the screening a year ago, but well, a year and 2 months now.
Mhm.
But this particular screening, like a lot jumped out at me. Like some things even jumped out at me for the first time, which is fun. I love that. But I agree with you. I think like even the rules, I guess, that Mindy establishes of the requel, I feel like it's almost like setting a guideline, like for a criteria list for things that I feel this movie checks every one of those boxes.
Mm.
Um, yeah, for me anyway. I know there are a lot of people who didn't have that experience, and are very, very vocal about that on the internet, but
I mean, there's always going to be somebody that doesn't like something, but yeah,
sure.
I was surprised just how many people, at least within, I can't call it the entire horror community, but the horror community that I'm a part of or that I follow on the socials. And there's still people that
Mhm.
are like, yeah, fucking Scream 5. I'm like, really?
I
But
don't
it's so good.
understand. I
I mean,
know.
I have some notes and they're
Yeah.
really fucking modest
Hmm.
fucking notes, but no, I don't really have a problem with anything in here.
I mean, even within the franchise itself, as sequels go, this one's pretty fucking, yeah,
Have you
exactly.
guys seen Scream 3?
But there are people who are really coming
Yeah.
to bat for that movie now, and they have their
And
reasons, and that's
and that's good for
fine.
them. You know what? And I
Yeah,
talk shit, but you know what? I watched Scream 3. I just watched it this year. We're
yeah,
only 2 months
totally.
into the year and I've already watched it. I
Yeah,
enjoy it. It's just not
yeah,
it's the worst Scream movie is still a good time and
yeah,
better than a lot of
totally.
other horror movies.
Yeah. My worst Scream movie is still a good time. Yeah. For me. I know there are other people it's not the worst, but and that's the thing. It's like that's another
Yeah.
thing I worry about, like, is just the joylessness. It makes me wonder, like, well, what were you expecting? I mean, how would and I kind of don't want to know.
Right. Because
What
I've never heard a
no.
specific from any
No.
comment or declaration. There's never a reason.
It's always a broad general
Just
dismissal
sucks.
of yeah, or just like it just insulted my intelligence. Well, how? Well, and it's just
I
there's just a
mean,
lot of like backpedaling and like
I
just
mean,
complaining.
if I had complaints, and these aren't even good complaints, they're like here's a complaint. I wish Sydney was in it more. Like I wanted more of the thing that I liked. Just like give me like an extra helping. Like, and then I
I
have other
mean,
like, but nothing where I'm like,
yeah.
ooh, I don't know. Part of me wonders because uh in the similar way that people saw The Last Jedi were like, that's not my fucking Luke. I wanted Luke to come and like use the Force and be like, blah, because he's a good guy. He's like the best good guy. He wouldn't be like on an island. And I'm like, fucking whatever. Um, but like, oh, Leia and Han broke up. What the fuck? I wonder if people were like, what do you mean? Dewey Gale aren't together and he's an alcoholic and he got kicked off the Force. Like, what the fucking fuck? But I don't even hear people bitching about that. But I feel like
No.
maybe that could be the first thing you bitch about is you don't like where the legacy characters are, even though it's clearly intentional that this movie, while also like the other Scream movies, are poking fun at the horror genre and
Yeah.
also through Stab poking fun at themselves.
Yeah.
This movie has just as much to say about horror requels as it does about Hollywood and requels in general, specifically Star Wars. This movie has just as much to say about Star Wars to me as it does about any horror movie. In the
Mm-hmm.
fact that Dewey is essentially Luke. He's
Hmm.
older, he's grizzled, he's not in a place that fans would want to see him at. There is a young brunette heroine who comes to him for help, and he's like, no. And then ultimately does. Uh,
I never
there's
thought of it like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, this is why we should have talked a fucking year ago. And then it makes its points perfectly clear with the fact that Rian Johnson directed Stab 8 and that fans are bitching that he ruined his childhood, just the way people bitch about how Force Awakens or Last Jedi ruined their childhood. And like,
And how Rian Johnson even ruined the Stab franchise in
exactly.
this movie.
That's
Yeah.
literally the same director came and like it puts it on Front Street. Like, we have some thoughts on Star Wars too. And it's
Yeah.
all in there.
I just remember a little cheer in my because I'm not, I mean, we've had this talk off pod before. I don't know how much I've mentioned it on pod, but Rian Johnson's just not my director.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. Like, go make movies, make other people happy. I'm
And
not gonna.
he very much is mine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is fine. But I also there was a wonderful little cartwheel that my heart did when Mindy gets to tell the crazy one. I can't even remember her name.
Live.
I just like her so much. Yeah, Liv.
That eye roll.
When she gets to tell her like, well, you have horrible taste, and I'm just like,
And I love
because
that because I mean, do you just ever have friends? Like, I have friends who I know, like, and we openly discuss how like you like it's not just like our opinions are different. I'll just say like you have terrible taste, and they're like, well, you like terrible movies.
right.
And I love just that because I've had that banter.
Yeah. That's what made me Mindy was a big strong
Oh
contender
yeah,
for like she was up there for like most watchable new character. I think she kind of shared it jointly with Tara for me. Which I don't know how much you want to go into that. I don't know, do you have more stuff to cover before we dive in?
no, I don't. Let's just dive in.
Okay. Do you want to go like, okay, so
Yeah.
we start at the very beginning?
I have so many tangents to go off of, but I guess we could maybe start at the
Okay.
beginning and then
Okay.
fucking not,
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Um, I was so happy. One of the things that really gratified me, particularly in my first viewing, and it happened again this time. I really, really adore the original, of course. I'm not special that way. But it made me realize none of the other sequels, and this is a good thing, I think, really kind of echoed that closely, like cribbed off of the original with their opening, in that there's a young teenage girl. She's alone in a big house at night. She, answers the phone and starts a conversation with a stranger she probably shouldn't, and, starts going into this horror discourse and everything like that. And from the intonation on the other side of the phone that no good is going to come of this. You can feel the tension. And that was the first time I'd felt it in a long time. Because at the beginning of Scream 2, I think I said it on the pod, I like it. It's smart, and it's a logical, like, new direction for it to go, and especially with like Stab being introduced for the first time and everything like that. But it doesn't scare me. It just kind of bums me out,
Yeah.
And the third opening is what it is. And the fourth opening for me, I think, is, I still get a lot of joy when I watch it. I think it's really, really smart. But again, no real tension. No, I don't feel the stakes, as it were. I just kind of feel like, oh, okay, hip, young, phone, people, self-referential and all that. This one happened, and I kind of like clasped my hands just kind of like this. And I was just kind of like, oh my God, it's happening again. And the fact that Jenna Ortega is as phenomenal an actress and has that watchable star quality, same as Drew, and invests and seems spontaneous, yet absolutely suited to the task at hand as an actor, to be in the predicament and to just kind of, I don't know, just take me along with her on that phone call. I was like, if the rest of the movie is like this, they fucking nailed it. I remember I was like pre-celebrating in my heart, just and I'm going, oh, and I hadn't done that in a long time either, with Ghostface on the phone, going like, oh my God, no. It just put me on pins and needles. I felt afraid for her and with her, and then finally when she started to get attacked, the brutality,
Oh my God,
was palpable. I was just kind of like, oh, ain't never done that in a Scream movie before.
mm-hmm.
Seeing the knife go through her fucking hand, watching him stomp on watching Ghostface stomp on her leg and and her blood curdling screams. I was just like, since Casey Becker. I was just like, oh my God. So yeah.
And that followed through to me. This is one of my favorite Ghostface as far as just their activity. Because also, like, Sheriff Judy is just like fucking whack, 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 whack. And I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And then the complete opposite with Wes, which is just like,
yeah, slow and drawn out and not flinching. The camera stays on it. Yeah.
Part of me, part of the reason why I think it works too is that Jenna, like, no offense to casting, but Jenna Ortega looks like a teenager, and all of her friends look like they're in their 20s. So she, even though they're all in the same like friend group, and she was 17 for filming part of that opening scene, and then 18 for part of filming that opening scene. So she is a child. It's been a while since, like, Drew Barrymore does not look like a teenager in high school in Scream.
No.
This felt like a kid getting attacked.
Yeah.
And the first time I saw Ghostface step on her leg, I was like mortified. I'm like, you monster.
Yeah. Oh, because she's so tiny too. She's just so like, because Drew, I don't know how tall Drew is, but I think she feels taller than Jenna Ortega. So Tara's just kind of like this little thing. It's a good way to kind of like introduce like the little sister thing too, like make her shorter than your leading lady, than the older sister, and it'll look
protective.
Like
Mama
totally. But at the same time, brimming with strength, like those eyes. There was always something going on behind those eyes.
Well, that's what I was gonna say is, one, I don't know if those are her screams or if someone else is looping for her. It happens a lot.
Yeah.
But she's screaming with her eyes. Like, she's screaming from a place in a way that some other actors, like, oh, it's a scream. But like, if you were watching the movie on mute, you get it in a way that
totally. Oh,
Yeah.
it might even be more chilling. Just like, oh shit, what is that? What's happening? Why am I watching this?
Although I'm glad you brought up the attack, because I remember the first time I saw the movie, I felt slightly ripped off
Uh-huh.
because we see Casey, we see God, I can't remember Jada Pinkett Smith's character's name, but
Maureen.
Maureen.
Yeah.
We don't actually see Cotton get killed, but we see him get stabbed a bunch of times where he's like coughing up blood. Like everyone, it's the girls in the beginning of Scream 4. Like we cut to the knife, but there's still been plenty of damage done where it feels like mortal wounding. Whereas her, I just felt like Tara's getting attacked.
Yeah.
So as Ghostface brings up the knife, and I'm waiting for the kill, and it just cuts away from the kill, and I'm like, oh, boo, no kill.
Oh
The fuck is this shit? And then you find out it's because she
yeah.
survived. And I'm like, oh. And that's interesting because we haven't had that in any Scream movie yet.
Right.
A surviving kill from the beginning.
That didn't even. I was so horrified. I thought she died. When I found out she was still alive, I was like, "What?"
Right. I thought she died, and I thought they didn't show me. And I'm like, "Fuck you, movie."
No, I didn't have that at all. You are so funny. I want to see the little girl die. You show me a little girl corpse right now.
Yeah.
You owe me one dead little girl hanging from a tree. Is this a Scream movie or isn't it?
You say that with a joking tone. But you're not. And also that has now set me a new fucking precedent, because now with Scream 6, I don't know who's going to be in the opening scene.
No, yeah.
I don't know if it's going to be a new person or if they're going to try to pull like a Cotton Weary, but like now I have to wonder. I already don't know. Are they going to die in this opening scene or are they not? I don't.
Yeah.
So good job, because you've already altered the course a bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also,
yeah,
just fun side story. I saw Scream opening day at a matinee, and this fucker sitting a few rows behind us brought a kid that he had raised to not only like horror movies, but a kid to like vocally cheer on. So every time like Jenna Ortega is getting attacked, this kid is like just hooting and hollering and having a great time. And I'm doing that thing where I'm like, I gotta fucking tell this guy to shut the fuck up. And I turn around and I instantly see a guy that I'm like, this is a guy with whom I don't want to fuck with.
Yeah.
Shit. And we're pissed. So we're just like, do you just want to go see the next show? Because it's like starting in 10 minutes. So I got to see the whole opening scene twice, like on my first time. Once, without.
That's a bummer. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah.
I had a really good audience. They seemed really cooperative and really into it. Like everybody, we were all on the same page, which was nice.
Well, I'm lucky that my theater is really like empty on the weekdays. So like, yeah. Anyway, side note, don't bring your fucking kids to movies, especially R-rated movies. R-rated movies with people getting killed, just don't bring them for the enjoyment of other people, please. Anyway.
If you hadn't added that little bit at the end, I would have been like, all right, Jamie Lee. But anyway.
Hey. Bring your kids to the Minions. I don't give a shit. I won't be there.
All right. Well, there you go.
Yeah, opening scene.
Yeah.
I didn't bring this up in any of the other podcasts, but I've thought about it, and I really thought about it this time too. I don't know if is it Roger Jackson who's Ghostface? I think it's Roger Jackson.
Roger L. Jackson? Yeah, I think so.
I don't know if they make their actors do a reading and then he matches it.
Right.
But it wouldn't surprise me if they did, because recurringly, like when I watch Scream, I can hear like Billy saying those Ghostface lines. I can hear Stu saying those lines.
Oh, right.
And there are times in this movie where I'm like, oh, I just forgot her name all of a sudden. Amber. I'm like, that sounds like it hits the way Amber would say it.
Yep.
So, or I don't know if he just sort of studies them in general and makes sure that or maybe he's just fucking doing Ghostface, doesn't give a shit. Yeah. But I really do believe there are some moments in this movie where I really, really believe that these actors are one and the same.
Yeah, which is an odd thing to say for me now, because I I think I spent my whole life until 2020 watching these movies, never speculating who Ghostface was. So that is I do it now, but I didn't start thinking like that until I started doing the other pod. And I remember, like, it really had me thinking, like, oh, who? I never really thought. I just thought Ghostface is Ghostface, and it's one of them. And if it's not that person, it's the other. I never really worried about it. And now, especially with this one, I have very strong opinions when I hear Amber is the one I feel particularly close to, because there's a kind of manic relish that I feel. Like I couldn't help but imagine she's the one saying Sheriff Judy.
Oh, absolutely.
And, yeah, whenever
Oh,
the sinister thing, just
yeah,
it makes me
especially
feel
the Dewey kill scene. Like, yes,
well,
today.
right,
Like,
right.
but also all the stuff on the phone with Sam leading up to that. I'm like, oh, this is so Amber. This is so Amber, that whole conversation.
Yeah. And of course we know that it is, because Richie's the one who's going,
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, you brought up Sam, and she's like the next kind of chronological step. Oh, okay, I want to address something, because I've spoken to a few people about it. I don't know how the masses feel at large, but the impression I get is that a lot of people, if they were to take issue with, shall we say, the performance level, the portrayal that they are offered from any of the actors in the movie, the only one I've really heard any complaints about pure performance is Melissa Barrera as Sam Carpenter. And I remember when I heard it wasn't a surprise. I was like, what? But at the same time, it's another case where I'm just kind of like, even watching it this time, I was like, yeah, I mean, she's got this kind of, it's not, maybe it's stoic, I don't even know if it's stoic, but just very still thing. And this way of expressing her lines incredibly simply. And I remember even feeling it the first time I watched the movie. I hear it again every single time when she's on the phone and she's like, "Do they know who did this?" And then she hangs up, she's just like, "My sister was attacked. We have to go." And every now and then it keeps kind of coming back to that. I feel like even her delivery of her disclosure of, like, her story of discovering that, I was going to call him Skeet, that Billy Loomis is her dad, that Skeet's her dad. And same kind of thing, even though she's like, kind of crying and emoting and everything like that, it's not the most dynamic thing to watch. That said, I don't think it's bad. I just think it's fine until we get to the end, and that's when I am like clapping over my head, because I don't know if it's something in the direction, and maybe somebody either talked to her too much or left her alone too much, or even, again, she speaks in a lot of close-ups, and a lot of people may not know this, but when you're an actor and you're working in close-up, you cannot move, because if you do,
you're out of frame.
If you go wild and crazy, this is what it looks like. And yeah, and yeah, you can get out of focus and everything. Like people have to like sit there and pull focus and try to like just rake the camera. It all has to be choreographed, and you have to be there. And I have been on set where I'm in close-up and I'm working with an actor, and I'm so involved in what's happening across the table from me in the performance, I stop thinking about the camera, and all of a sudden I'm up here and I'm down here, and they're just like, okay, you need to just hold perfectly still. So I'm like, all right, I have to give myself a reason to hold perfectly still, and then I do. And then I think, okay, good, I've got this. I'm in this. Okay, I'm back in the scene, and I'll just stay locked like this. And then something happens and I forget, and all of a sudden I'm back to this. And there's like, okay, fine. I think we went through about 6 or 7 takes. This one of the last projects I worked on. I remember they said, okay, we're just gonna have to pull back. You're just gonna have to be a semi, because we are losing you. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm like, no, it's no problem. It's just that's your style. We're learning too. I'm like, okay, great. But as an actor, you feel like I fucked it up. So maybe she's just trying to be a good actor, on set, like a good collaborator, and stay inside the frame. I don't know. This is all a long-winded way of saying, when she finally cuts loose and can And you know, that thing you were talking about, it works the other way
It
when she's
sure
doing it.
does.
And like I said, I'm clapping over my head every single time, and I am laughing, and I am enjoying the shit out of it because justice, you know. And also, I don't know, it's an angle we haven't really kind of like taken in this franchise yet, where the line between Ghostface and Final Girl is kind of blurred. Like, you know, the way that it is, like Sydney used to speculate that she might be the bad seed or something like that, but never to the point that it would drive her to be Ghostface, you know. Like we always knew, and I think Sydney always knew, I'm Sydney Prescott, that's who I am, whatever that means in any given film. I never worried about her turning over to the dark side, as it were.
Yeah,
You know,
no.
where the-
Anytime anyone theorizes that Sydney's the killer, I'm like, shut the fuck up. Do you even watch these movies?
Right? God, yeah. Now she's gonna break. She's been
Right.
going through
Like-
this for over 20 years, and now she's gonna like. That was just that sixth film was just one bridge too far, and
Yeah.
I think it's stupid.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah, I agree with you. Let me just put it that way.
Okay.
It's not a deal breaker.
No, not at all.
But and part of me, yeah, part of me wants to blame it on like, well, there's more other colorful characters around you, and sometimes you need the straight man, as it were. I see this a lot with animation, where I find like the lead character is kind of more basic, and all the supporting characters are very exaggerated. And then I've learned that like, no, but that's actually what you're supposed to do. Like your lead is supposed to be a little vanilla.
Right.
However, you'd think, no, but someone who's battling with the fact that they're the daughter of a serial killer and that they're taking antipsychotic meds and they're not working and they're seeing their killer dad, like that all sounds juicy, and it's not as juicy as if I just described that to you and you hadn't seen the movie. But again, it's not a deal breaker. It's just it's
no.
It's like, I almost feel like she's trying to walk the tightrope line of like trying to be the straight man lead of the film without, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah,
well, because it's interesting that you brought that up.
I have some issues with some of the readings too, but again,
Yeah,
there are. I was actually thinking about that today. Sometimes, you know, it's not even just like what you're bringing to the set that day. It can also be things in editing. Like there's so many factors beyond just, oh, it's a bad script or oh, it's a bad performance. Like a lot of things can happen along the way before you get to the final result. So I don't know how much of it's that factors in.
But I mean, you did bring up a valid point as far as just like the stakes of like what she's going through. It's not that I don't feel them, but I remember you made me just remember in her exchange with Tara, where she's giving the speech and disclosing to Tara, like, this is why I stayed so distant, why I got weird with you and all this stuff. And as we're leading into it, I'm looking at the two of them, and on paper, you would imagine that Sam's role is the juicier one, the one that gets more to play.
But Tara,
but you would think that Tara's just kind of like the more passive one, the victim and everything. But the way Jenna Ortega is absorbing it, and this is another thing, I don't. It's all fine, but that scene is maybe one of the ones that I have the most problems with as far as the way it was written. Only because, only because it feels really arbitrary to have Tara have the reaction that she does, because like for all of a sudden, get the fuck out, you just come here and unload this all on me, and I'm like, why would I'm trying to imagine a world where it's not like I know Tara well or anything like that, but there's some, I feel like you're trying to create for me it feels like
I totally buy it.
No, see, no, it's not about the performance. I buy her performance. I think she plays the shit out of it really, really well. But the way it's written, if I were writing it or if I were even reading it and offering notes, one of my things would say, are you just trying to create conflict so they can resolve it later? Because that's what it feels like to me.
No,
that's how it felt to me.
I'm not saying her reaction is right.
Okay.
Her reaction is from a specific experience that she's going through. And if she could breathe and take a step back, you know, and with age, she would look back and say, I reacted to that poorly. But based on what her age is and based on what she's just been through, I 100% be like, I am in here. I got fucking stabbed 7 times. Like, this is you. I haven't seen you in fucking years. You left me, and now you want to come and tell me this? Like literally today? Like, no, I get it.
Well, when
I
else?
get it.
I guess the why would you withhold this from me kind of thing. Again, just the way I think it's played beautifully. I think it's shot beautifully. I just have an issue. My biggest issue is just with the writing, and maybe that's another thing that Melissa Barrera is kind of like dealing with. Although this is the thing, it's not a deal breaker, and it's not something that I'm just kind of like, this ruins it for me, because what it does give me is soap opera, which I adore. I enjoy
Yeah, you do.
I totally adore the melodrama of this entire franchise, because it's always, you can watch it one way or the other. You can get wholly invested in it and enjoy it because you're inside of it with these characters, and it's but you can also in the self-referential side be on the outside of it and see it as camp, like the melodrama, like, oh god, okay, here we go. Before it was Sydney being haunted by the ghost of her mother, and now it's like this specter of Billy, which is another thing that I felt was really kind of like, a lot of people had a negative reaction to Billy's inclusion as an apparition in this movie. I didn't have that at all. What about you?
I did not.
Okay.
But before I go off on that tangent,
Yes.
I don't envy is it Melissa Barrera?
Yeah.
Because when you talk about the writing, to me, I have a hard time when I get pulled out of movies when the exposition dump feels like exposition dump. And that scene to me is like not quite a record scratch, but I do bump into like, let me talk and talk and talk and talk about explaining stuff. And that to me is the hard part, because she's got the hard job of dumping all that out. But Jenna Ortega listens to it so perfectly. But you're right. Like, to me, that's Jenna Ortega's scene, even though all she's doing is listening.
Yeah.
But that's 80% of acting is doing that and doing it well. So no, the thing I liked Billy, and I actually liked it the more times I saw it. Especially because if the agenda of this movie is to be a Scream 5, but to also be a reboot, and to hit a lot of the beats, to hit the call in the kitchen in the opening scene, to end with a party at Stu's house, to essentially hit all the beats of the first movie. But you've also got to make things kind of new. Yeah. And the thing I liked about it was I went, oh, this is different. No other Scream movie's done this. And at first, I wasn't ever against it. In fact, the first time I fanboyed, I'm like, Skeet's in it. Wow.
Because I didn't know either. I didn't
oh my
know
God.
either. Yeah.
So aside from the fanboying out of it, I every time I look at this movie now, I'm just very aware that the first time she looks in the mirror and he's there, it's what sets this movie apart.
Yeah.
It's like an X factor that only this movie has. And I think for some people, they might go, this isn't Scream for me. But I go, no, this is what they're adding to make it a new Scream while still being the same Scream. It's just a new spice added to the soup, and it's a spice I enjoyed.
Right. And I also, and like I already addressed too, like, and I love telling people this, I'm like, this isn't the first character or even the first protagonist in a Scream movie to be haunted by the specter of their dead parent, but
like it's done better. My problem is in Scream 3, Sidney has a bad dream.
Yeah.
And somehow, I mean, I know that Roman's harkening back to like his mom, but like Roman doesn't know that Sidney's haunted by shit. So when Sidney's on the set and like the mom's corpse gets up, like that's it. It's just these two dumb scenes that just, and the fuck it. This movie does it right.
I mean, for me, they're both they both have the potential to be taken as ridiculous. If somebody sees that and thinks it's ridiculous, I'm going to be like, then do you think Sydney's mom in Scream 3 is ridiculous too? And if they say yes, I will respect their opinion. But if they think it works in Scream 3 and it doesn't in 5 Cream, then I'm just going to be like, I don't know if we need to keep talking or if I need to just walk away from you right now.
I have the tiniest note.
Okay.
The only thing I don't like is so minor is at the end of the movie when Richie, is it Richie? I'm still terrible with names, even with a movie I love to death.
Richie, yeah.
I just get older and fucking names go boop. Richie's like, she's crawling on the ground and Richie's above her.
Yeah.
And she looks up at like the window or the mirror, and Billy glances to the knife. And I'm like, but he's just in your head. How does he know where the knife is? Like, you can look around, but he clues her, and then she finds the knife. I'm like, he's not real. How can he tell you where the knife is?
She's an unreliable narrator, John
She's
Carlos.
not the narrator because we
No,
constantly
but
cut away to Dewey. Oh,
no,
in
no,
that
no. But I
moment,
mean, like in her own
I have to,
experience, from her
yes, I have to
perspective.
justify it. I just go, see, she saw it subliminally, but didn't really know it's there. And then
Mhm.
her id is like, or her super id is like, fucking knife.
Yeah. And
But
then, yeah. And she
anyway,
may
it's
see
the
it and she
smallest
may
note.
actually perceive it, but the way her mind processes it is it's her father.
Yeah.
Because also
But
there's this weird kind of like, get it, kid, like this weird, like this, again, this familial longing that feels completely symptomatic of something that I believe Sam would be going through, like after her estrangement from her sister and her estrangement from her parents and the way she thought she broke her family apart and all of that. Like, I don't know, you know me in the head
yeah,
canon.
no, well, one of the things I really like about it
Yeah,
is that scene in the car where, and he's like, hey, there's, because she's fleeing the powwow,
yeah,
outdated
yeah,
term, but the meeting of what to do and who the killer
yes,
could be. And the fact that he's like, someone's out there. He hurt your sister. So why don't you get the fuck out there and start slashing some fucking throats? And the fact that that is one, a foreshadow, because at the end of the movie, she wins the day by finding who hurt her sister and slashed some fucking throats.
totally,
That love me a good foreshadow. But also,
yeah.
I do like the idea of this energy where she's the heroine and she's afraid that she's going to be the monster that her father was. She's been afraid to
Hmm.
tell her sister ever since her sister was a kid. She comes back to town and this is so hard on her. She's embarrassed to tell the people at the meeting that she's the son of, or the daughter of a slasher, and that she doesn't want to end up like him. But the thing that, like, that impulse that you're afraid of, I love that that's ultimately
Hmm.
like, you know what? It's kind of like the Edward Norton Incredible Hulk. Like, if you can just sort of redirect the energy and like get and aim it,
Yes. Yeah, 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 yeah.
maybe don't be on your antipsychotic meds. Maybe
Yeah.
just aim it. Aim it at
Maybe,
Richie.
well, that's another thing, is this thing, it's, and oh God, it always becomes like a metaphor for coming out, doesn't it? But I mean, this thing that she's been stifling and thinking she's
Mm.
hiding from everybody, and everybody in the town knows, as we find out from Amber, it's a small fucking town. So
Notes.
okay, we'll get there. But just the fact that, like, by embracing I guess assumed nature, which she sees as such a detriment and that's had her afraid of her own shadow, and afraid of connecting with people, has become her saving grace at the end of the movie. And the fact that it all gets topped off, like, I feel like the full embrace, like, I mean, there's the run up to the embrace, which is her stabbing Richie,
Mm-hmm.
but and even her cutting his throat. But I feel like the full the punctuation on it is the wipe of the blade.
Oh my god,
I
that's when I fucking like cheer.
Yes, it is, and I feel that every single. I felt it today. Every time I
Yep.
watch that movie, it makes my spirit just rise, and I just feel
And
so.
and isn't
Yeah,
that fucked up? Because we used to see bad guys do
I
it, and it
know.
became a hallmark, and now we cheer. But
Well,
the movie
because
got me to cheer. Good
we've
job,
seen
movie.
we've seen bad guys do it. You know what? I would love to go back through the franchise again and just check, like, is that only done after a kill of a young girl? Or is it ever done after the kill of a male? Because I know it's done after Cece
I am
in 2.
somewhat certain. No, maybe I'm not. I was about to say in Scream 1 when Dewey falls over with a knife in his back. I can't,
And is
I thought, but I
that's
know
a
Ghostface
clean?
just reaches
Okay.
down and yanks it out and keeps going. But I could have sworn
Yeah.
they did the wipe
Yeah, I
thing.
feel like maybe too. I can't
Definitely happens
remember.
in 2.
Yeah, of course.
Definitely happens in 4.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, no, I that is a fist pump for me.
Yeah, because it's become this symbol that that I wasn't ever really even conscious. I never articulated to myself, that's a ghost face move, even though I knew it was. When I
Yeah.
saw it in the movie, I knew, oh, there's that thing, but I never talked about it with anybody. It never became like a thing. And like a Freddy glove, or like, stay woke. But but
I mean,
no, yeah, but the fact that I get to see, like, my heroine do it to a ghost face fucking A. Like
Oh yeah.
that is a crowd goes wild stadium up on your feet sheer moment in my heart.
And clearly the producers know it. I'm not telling you anything from an actual trailer because I know you're staying like spoiler free from Scream 6. So am I.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the promotional things that they did, you would see it like on like little Instagram videos, is like, remember like the first movie, the posters of like each character holding the mask up?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And right now they have a poster of each character holding a knife.
Okay.
Each character, they did a little video where each actor is holding the knife and wiping it.
Oh,
And they edit it so you see like each one go like "Rrr, rrr, rrr," and
that's
like they've
funny.
all posed with it. I'm like, you know the pose, you're using it in your promotions now, like you get it, you know.
Yeah.
And we've all known since like Scream 2 once they repeated it. But even in Scream 1, I mean, I remember hearing people in the audience go, ugh, when the first time he wiped. And I think it was like improv.
Oh,
I remember correctly.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. That makes me so happy. I love it when accidents like that happen and they become fucking legends, but so that makes me happy.
Can I go back to something? It's its own thing, but it harkens back to the opening scene that we were talking about.
Yeah.
I like the bit where he's asking what her favorite horror movie is, The Babadook. But what I love is when she's explaining, you know, it's elevated horror, you know.
Yeah.
And I love that he just goes like, no, that sounds a little boring. Have you? And I love the way he draws it. Have you ever seen the Stab movies? Like, have you ever seen Stab? But it's one of the only times where I feel like Ghostface isn't one of the killers, but it's like a 40 or 50-year-old man going, huh? And a little boring. But I love it. But it brings me to it brings me to because one of the things that, you know, that Scream, probably more so than 2 or 3, but Scream 1 was like topical about horror, post 80s, the state of horror. Scream 4 got to be topical about the nature of reboots at the time.
Yes.
But I like the fact that in this movie we get to address the state of horror again. And one of the things I love, and it's one of the things that really excites me about this movie. I love when movies feel like they're speaking to each other. And that doesn't happen often, but I love when something feels like a response to another one. Because I felt this, and I think I talked about this when we talked about Cabin in the Woods. But that Cabin in the Woods, so fucking like decimated all those cliches and beats of 80s and 90s slasher movies, and like maybe they'll hold over to early 2000s, that I felt like, what is the fucking point of even making a horror movie after Cabin in the Woods? Because that was such a takedown. And the fact that it's about destroying the world before you, and who knows, whatever's next is going to build something new. I don't think it was a coincidence that after, and I said this in, I think, in the Cabin in the Woods video, that after Cabin in the Woods was the rise of Blumhouse and was the rise of A24 and what we call elevated horror. And that seemed to go on for like a good decade or so. What I like is that Scream 5 seems to be saying, bullshit. It's not fucking dead. It's not fucking over.
Yeah.
Here's Gail and Sydney, and here's the dude with the knife. Like, it seems to be a response to what I thought Cabin in the Woods was saying. And even as I felt that, I realized, well, if I want to be honest, I guess Halloween 2018 said it first. But Halloween 2018 was just the return, the resurgence. Scream seems to actually be saying it, because Scream is the metatextual movie that gets to say things in a way that, you know, a straightforward Halloween 2018 doesn't really say anything beyond itself. But yeah, one thing that I feel like Cabin in the Woods could not have predicted was the nostalgia boom. That to me is the biggest thing that this, even more than requels, it's not just requels, it's the nostalgia requels. It's the bringing back of, you know, even for the worst version, like it's not the same actress, but Texas Chainsaw, you know. So anyway, yeah, I just love that little conversation these movies seem to have. It makes me happy.
Good. Yeah.
I like that Scream seems to have a manifesto.
Yeah,
as an intention.
That was one of the things that actually I'm curious, that has me most curious about like seeing Screevy, because I'm just kind of like, well, what are you going to do? Like, we were lucky enough that like the first movie was the first movie, and it was self-referential, you know, set the pace and kind of like begun its own subgenre with the teens horror, you know, with the pithy phrases, and then the kills that, you know, that some are more brutal than others, but you've got these young people, you've got their music, you've got the poster with the young faces on it and everything like that. And then the second one was about sequels, third one was about trilogies, and the fourth one was about reboots, and then this one was about the requels and also toxic fandom. And so it just made me wonder, like, what else is there to kind of like comment on so soon, like a year
right, so
after the
shortly.
fifth movie?
I only had one idea, because again, there's something obvious when you do Scream 2. Well, we can do sequels.
Right.
Everything's been obvious, but I felt the same way after Scream 5. What do you do if you have to have an angle? What's your angle? And the only thing I could come up with that is on the tongue of people, as far as something that we bitch about, that Scream hasn't totally tackled, but if they wanted to, they could.
Yeah.
Not as definitive as a requel or a trilogy, mind you, but if my impulse was, I would make Scream 6 about fan service. Like the overt nature of like when the sequels, like when Rogue One and Jin bumps into fucking Ponta Baba and Dr. Vizio, and you're just like, hey, remember 3PO? Well, there they are. Like, remember this character? That, like, if you wanted to do like that bad version of just like when the corporations like really kind of go, well, here's what fans want to see, right? And kind of shoot themselves in the foot a bit.
Yeah.
I'm like, you could go there. That's the only thing I could think to do.
Okay, the only thing that I thought of, I think I literally thought it the day of, because I think it was relatively soon after the opening of Five Cream that we knew that a Screevy was on the horizon, or at least, you know, was being greenlit, and we didn't know what it was going to be. I remember thinking like, that's really, and like next year, and I'm like, that's really soon. What are they going to do? What is it going to be? And the only thing I could think of at the time was because I feel like this has moved into, from kind of like a niche thing to a mainstream thing. This is the perfect year to identify it as a mainstream thing, is the multiverse. Right? and not in like a Stab 5 time travel kind of way. Or was it Stab 7? I don't remember which Stab movie introduced time travel. Stab 5 introduced time travel, goes off the rails at 5. I remember that, but the only thing I could think is like, okay, well, everybody wanted to know, is Kirby alive? And like, we want our Kirby back and everything like that. And she's nowhere near Woodsboro. So what if like in a kind of like still within reality, like the reality of like the world that is established with the franchise, but what if like someone was going after a multiverse, and simultaneously while Five Cream is happening in Woodsboro, Kirby and like a whole team of other requel characters are encountering another Ghostface, or another set of Ghostfaces, or maybe a Ghostface cult, who knows? But you know, their own horror movie simultaneously, to touch on, you know, something like that. I don't think it's a good idea, but it was the only thing that I came up with. It was like, because I also wanted Kirby back. I was really, as much as I did enjoy this movie, and I don't think Kirby fits in it, because there's already, arguably, that's maybe, it's not a criticism, it's just the situation that the movie is in. A lot of characters. I won't say too many, or I'll just say too many characters, you know, like with enthusiasm.
That's one of my notes.
If there
not
was,
exactly, but we'll get to
but
it.
if you brought Kirby into this movie as well, how fucking overstuffed would that be?
But
like,
again, we'll save it for the pod. The fucking like that opening weekend, when I was just like, you know, when you start seeing the news and like, oh, movie Easter eggs, and I saw that like Kirby is a little video on the side of the YouTube, I was like, what? They confirmed Kirby's alive. I love this movie. Like, that's the Easter eggy bullshit that's good. So yeah. It's funny that you mentioned multiverse. I don't know if I'd do multiverse, but I think it'd be funny, and I actually don't want them to do this. I'm just spitballing it, but it'd be funny with Scream 7, if there is one.
Yeah.
You do like Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
Oh my God, don't.
And Courtney Cox and everyone plays
Oh,
themselves and some asshole.
no. And some
However,
asshole starts.
I also feel like they shouldn't do it only
No,
because
Wes
they
isn't
did it.
around anymore.
No, not even that.
Okay.
Because they did it for Stab 7.
Yeah.
Therefore, the franchise has already like touched on it, barely touched on it, but still touched on it.
Yeah.
And I know it's not implicit, but like the fact is, in Scream 4, when they're watching Stab 7 and they're talking about the opening Stab 6,
Yeah.
therefore the Stab movies are Stab 1 through 6 are a movie, and then 7th is commenting on it.
Yes.
Which we didn't talk about this when we talked about Scream 4, but isn't it kind of sweet, like as a love letter to Wes Craven in its own way, that like the 7th Stab movie is New Nightmare of Stabs? That's kind of lovely if you think about it.
Yeah, I think that's. Yeah, I think that
It is. Anyway,
I never really thought about that before. That's anyway. Aw. But don't get me
um,
emotional. Don't get me emotional.
I'll try not to. Little thing, little tiny thing.
Yeah.
Again, I think this movie hits a lot of the celebration in honor of in really lovely ways that don't beat you over the fucking head with it or stop the movie to get there. And one of them, I just remember the opening scene is that Tara's getting a text from Wes. And I went, oh, Wes.
Yeah.
And we'll get to
Wes
that in a moment.
Hicks.
But also the fact that Samantha Carpenter goes by Sam Carpenter. I'm like, oh, Carpenter. That's
Yeah.
a horror movie last name. That's cool. We got Wes and we got Carpenter in this. Isn't that neat?
Yeah, it's a Wes
And then,
Carpenter flick.
exactly. But then in my brain went one extra step, which is, well, her dad's Billy Loomis, which could make her Sam Loomis.
Oh my God, I didn't even. Oh my God.
Billy Loomis is a callback to Dr. Loomis, who is a callback to Sam Loomis. And now we're bringing it full circle with Sam Loomis. And I'm like, I
Oh
love this
my
fucking movie.
God. And we also do like the more kind of like obvious nods to the two other movies that have a Sam Loomis in them, but with the Halloween reference, where it sounds a lot like Halloween, and then with the Psycho reference with him being in the "Did you ever see Psycho?" or whatever, you know? And I'm just like, oh my gosh, because those are the two movies that have Sam Loomis, and Psycho influenced Halloween. That's why he's Dr. Sam Loomis, is not to say, oh my God. See, okay,
Right?
this is see, that's fan service, and see, that's the kind of fan service that I'm like, it's not. Because okay, I gotta say something.
It hits you in your brain, it hits you in your heart, but doesn't stop the movie dead in its tracks.
No, that's the perfect way of putting it, because that's how you do it. I've sat through too many movies and read too many screenplays that are, you know, like nowadays, like that people like, you know, want me to read and like, you know, give them feedback and stuff like that. And so many people do the nostalgia thing, and so many people, it's almost like they all don't think that each other are doing the same thing. It's like, well, just go to the movies and look at some of the movie and how many things get replicated, and you know, the fan service of it all, and the this and the reviews, and hey, remember this thing you loved? It's like, yeah, I do. I own that movie. It's sitting on a shelf at home, and it's already been referenced several times throughout its own franchise. I don't need to see it from you. I get a little, maybe I'm just a grumpy old man, but I just get a little short-tempered sometimes when homages just feel like, don't you have anything to say? You know, like if it gets me in the heart like a Cupid's arrow, that's ideal. But I feel like too many people want to do that to you, and you can't force something like that. It has to be very carefully handled. Otherwise it just feels like, where's your movie? Where's what you have to say? And one thing that I really appreciate about this movie is, another thing that the requel does really, really well is it satisfies, and we can talk about how, but it satisfies what got me into the franchise in the first place by, you know, that appetite, but also refreshes it and gets me interested in seeing, well, where are these kids going to be going from here on out, as well as the surviving members of you know, the OG storyline. And on that note, I one thing I've heard complained about a lot is the handling of the legacy characters, you know, the Trinity, the Sid, Gale, and Dewey, mostly Sid and Dewey, and let's start with Sid. The complaints that I hear about Sid is like you said, like people who say like, I wish she should have been in it more. It's not even her movie, and Sid is always her movie. And I'm just kind of like, yeah, but this is doing something different. Like, and it's
Yes.
still every time Nev Campbell's on screen, it is Sydney's movie. You know, that's another thing that I really appreciate is that I've seen too many franchises where they even Texas Chainsaw Massacre, when they bring in a legacy character, even if it's not played by the same actress, whatever, or actor. I don't like that word, actress.
Me
When you
neither.
bring in, yeah, but when you bring in somebody else to play the role and everything like that, but you still have that character on screen, so something is supposed to happen in us and everything like that, and it's not right. It doesn't feel evocative. Like there's a way to do it that it could feel right. We're just kind of like, oh my gosh, okay, that works for me. Kinderman in Exorcist 3 versus with George, why am I losing his name right now?
Clooney.
No, not Clooney. You saw
Barris.
Exorcist 3. God damn
Went.
it. No, stop it. Stop, I'm gonna kill you.
Of the
Okay,
Jungle.
but anyway, the Lee J. Cobb role in the first movie, played by, it'll come to me later, that divine actor who plays him in the third movie, I don't have a problem believing that they're the same person. I'm just like, awesome. There's a way to do it where it still feels like you get enough of the character, or it's interesting enough that it's like, well, I don't even need it to be all homage and like that's the character I love and who I like. Now there's your story happening. You're somebody else. Okay, I'm on board. And the thing with Sydney is Nev is on screen and she's everything I want Sydney to be in her life at this particular point.
Yes.
Every decision that she's making and every means of expressing those, you know, what's motivating those decisions, I am totally on board with. And even cinema, visual medium, looking into, I don't ever look into her eyes, but Sydney's eyes, there is a world of information in there. There is a world of strength and resilience and belief in you when she's looking at Sam, but also this kind of like, I need to get this done. I can get it done with you or without you. You know, mm-hmm. I will find a way to get this done because I've got kids now, and this is just who I am. And this is the last time there's going to be a ghost face if I have anything to say about it. And I really adore that energy from her.
This isn't a criticism. It might sound like it at first. There isn't as much fire to her performance as there has been in 1 through 4, but I think that's part of me wonders if that's just because like I showed up for a few days and this is what you get. But I also think this is where Sid is in her life now.
That's what I think. So
that when this bullshit comes up, she's gotten to a point where I'm like, I don't give it this much fucking energy. Can we just go kill this fucker?
Yeah.
It's not even like, even the lines where like she mentions like her kids and it's like, no, it's okay. They're safe and they're going to stay that way. That's why I'm here or whatever.
Exactly.
It isn't milked because it's like, I've been through this like 4 other times in my life. And at this point, like, yeah, like it's the Sarah Connor sort of, she's gotten to the point where she can be that tough. Yeah. So she can be that stoic. It just took me it took me a watching to adjust to it because I didn't really realize that Sydney's older. And this is just where she's at now. Yeah. I don't have a problem with kind of calm or stoic performances. I'll put this out there now to all the haters. Like, I really like Brie Larson and Captain Marvel. I didn't think she needed to smile more. I didn't think she was boring. Men can be stoic and it's okay. And guess what? Women can be stoic too.
I started to count how many times she smiled in that movie the last time I watched it, and she smiled like 16 times. The thing is, it's not like in a close-up and featured, like, look at my smiling face. It's like she's looking at someone and you can only see her in profile. So it's not showcased, but she's like fucking smiling.
And it's not funny Thor beats and it's not smirky Chris Pratt beats. Like it's yeah. In fact, I really appreciate some of the drier moments that she has that I'm like, that was funny. And it's funny because she was so dry. Anyway. So yeah, no, there's a lot of Sydney stuff and I really like that has to do more with her calm. Although I am aware, I hate to say this because I really, really like her. So this is the only tiniest little note I have. It has nothing even really to do with the performance. Okay. I think it has more to do with just like the nature of production sometimes. Like I know like not every movie will have rehearsals. They'll at least have like a read through, and sometimes your entire cast can't make it to the read through.
Yeah.
But like for example, I know Anthony Hopkins, because every actor has different approaches, and that's one of the most interesting things to me about movies is when certain actors have certain techniques, and you're not all on the same page. And when people get to rehearse, and how neat is this? Whereas other actors like, well, I don't need to rehearse, but we're rehearsing, and then what you get on the day versus the actors who are like, it sucks trying to get what's on the day because we can't prepare. Anyway, all that being said, when they were promoting the movie, I think it was on the Drew Barrymore show. I forget who, but it was like her and Courtney, and I think I want to say Dewey, but
David Arquette.
David Arquette. Someone mentioned Mark, and how is that the same Mark from Scream 3?
Right.
And the way like Nev Campbell responded was like, what? Like she didn't remember. Like
that makes me happy, actually.
Like
that actually makes me really
and they
happy.
had to explain to her, like, oh no, the cop Kincaid. That was like, that's Mark. So like, is that the same Mark? And she's like, what? I don't fucking know. I got the impression that like she didn't get the script like 3 months in advance. She, I think, pulled like an Anthony Hopkins, where he's like, hey, I really know how to fucking do this.
Yeah,
I'm Anthony Hopkins. What am I saying today? And go. And he just does it because and I got the impression that like, so now whenever she's on the phone and like Dewey asks about how her Mark are the kids, I'm very aware that she doesn't know who the fuck Mark is.
That actually makes me really happy, because a lot of people were so stoked that like, oh, so she did end up with Mark. And did we address this in our Scream 3 discussion? I don't need her to be with him. I don't want her to be with him. It's a little, like, I've got clippings of you, and it's a little,
to me it could just be a coincidence. And
even if he's not, like, I was hoping it was, because even just the way she said it, he's like, so how's Mark? She's like, oh, I think I'll keep him. And I'm like, oh, so is this somebody new? That sounds like something somewhat recent. But then again,
I thought the irony is like, we're married, we are together. Yeah, I think
but in the theater, I didn't think, oh, Mark with the thing. I just thought, oh, he's just said a name and that's her husband now, and she's got kids, and so I just thought I
instantly went, oh, she ended up with Mark.
No,
like you had your little dumb movie watching, but like years went by because you're not informed, but somehow like people come back to each other, who knows how, and
no.
I'm hoping he's a better person that doesn't keep files on her. It's something that maybe moved past.
I'm hoping it's just another guy named Mark.
Sure.
But if it is, and they bring in, little Patrick, what's his name, then it's like, okay, cool, whatever.
But you know what I will say?
What?
When she has her moment with Tara, and then like lets her go instead of fighting to convince her to stay with her and Gail. And Gail's like, what the fuck?
With Sam.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sam.
Yeah.
When she lets Sam go, and Gail's like, what the fuck? And she's like, well, I put a tracker on her car. What? Yeah, it seems like something you would do, right? I love that Sydney came prepared. And not just prepared like, of course, if Sydney Prescott, I have a fucking gun. She came with GAC.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is happening again? Yeah, I'll say, oh, wait, Dewey's dead? All right, well, let me get my tracking shit. I just don't have time for the shit. So, like,
exactly.
Let me bring everything.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna fucking do this so I can get back. Like, I love it.
The only little
and would you want Sydney to be the same?
No, and that's the thing.
20 years after 3, like, come on.
But I am a little torn over that moment, not because of like what you brought up. Like, I love that moment for Sid. For Gail, I mean, the only thing that I can kind of like tell myself is, well, she just lost her best friend. Like, that's a huge thing. She might not be in her A game. So maybe it's good. I love it for Sydney, but I also kind of go like, but Gail Weathers. I always think like, Gail Weathers would find a way, and even though that's Jennifer Jolie saying that line. So I don't know. I just kind of, I don't know. Maybe it is really kind of emblematic of the series now that I think of the saga. Now that I think about it, because like here Jennifer's like outgaling Gail. Here Sydney's outgaling Gail. Maybe, and that that's got to be hard for Gail to watch other women taking on her influence, and then
Gail still gets some like
her.
She still gets a few in.
She does,
but she is, and this is fine. This is how it should go. She is not the same person she is in Scream 1.
Right. And yet, okay. Before we move on, I just remembered it before I forget it. George C. Scott. I remembered the name. Exorcist 3. That's Kinderman. Anyway, okay. Moving on. One thing I adore about Gale, and then we'll move on to Dewey. But Gale, I love that we see her like stepping out in a primary color.
Yes. Have you seen all the color charts of her?
Yes.
Oh, I
yes.
love
Are
it.
you kidding? I'm gay. I've got gay horror fans who I follow, and they just kind of like, "Happy Pride, everyone!"
Right, and it's
Gale
just her.
Weathers.
Yeah, her neon green, and then
yeah,
and there's the paparazzi photos of them filming Six, and she's in blue. Like,
right, yeah.
So we have a full color wheel. Like,
yes, we do. But seeing her like come out like in her red, and just I love the fact that like we're behind her and the hair is flowing in the wind, and it's just got this very like kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? Just like piss elegant Lois Lane vibe, you know, like hard boiled Lois Lane. That's what I think Gale Weathers is. But then for her to just kind of like move into Sam's shot and to immediately perceive what Sam is going through. And she's there to get the story, of course, but she's not, like you mentioned, she's not the opportunist, or maybe not the blatant opportunist,
right,
one-track mind Gale Weathers that we got in the first movie and arguably in the beginning of the second movie. There's more empathy there's more recognition, there's more of an ability to communicate with somebody and find out where they are. And then when you find out that you both knew Deputy now Sheriff Judy, and you both get to this point of like, I loved just the point that she's just like, she didn't really like me. It's like, oh, she didn't really like me either. And I'm like, no, she didn't.
The first time I saw that movie, like, I was like, all right, we're talking about a dead woman.
Yeah.
That used to work with your ex-husband. And when she said that line, I'm like, that's so disrespectful in the moment. And every single time I've seen it since, I just go, yeah, it's disrespectful, but it's so fucking Gale.
It is.
Just, she didn't really like me either.
Well, also because she can't like
she can't say that.
She can't defend Judy anymore, and it's
right.
a point of Des.
But later she goes up to Dewey later in that scene and says like, "Oh, and I'm sorry about Judy." Like, yeah. And I'm like, "Are you though?" Because you were just talking shit. I'm like, "No, you can't twist that knife in front of Dewey, but you can drop that truth bomb in front of this stranger." Like,
well, because also it's she obviously the stranger. I thought it was a more. I looked at it as a more empathetic, compassionate point for Sam. Towards Sam, because she's feeling bad. She's like, she didn't really like me. She's like, well, she didn't really like me either. So, you know, buck up, you're cool. And I don't know. So that's how I read it. But
I know, but I just think my initial impulse, I'm like, oh, well, I didn't realize. Yeah, that is pretty fucking Gale of her.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why I don't have a complaint about like the way she's written, because I mean, a lot of people were just like, she should have been like more involved in the climax. And I'm just kind of like, no, Gale gets shot. You know, like that's kind of what happens to her that takes her out.
We're calling back to Scream 1 structurally, right. And she gets fucking shot at Scream 2
and Scream 2.
But at that house.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and that
outside the door.
Totally.
We're doing the thing. It's a requel.
And again, there's so many characters. Like everybody can't. Everything can't be satisfied. Every character is going to have to just kind of like appear for their time, and in the time we have them, we have to receive their essence, and that's what I get. That's why I don't complain about it, because I don't feel like she was misused. I don't feel like she just kind of sauntered through, because if she didn't show up, I would have been like, well, why didn't Gale show up? You know, like this is an opportunity. And of course, there's always a reason you can write. There's probably a way to write around it that would satisfy me, but I was really, really happy to see her. I was especially happy to see, bringing her onto the scene and having, first of all, I love the fact that like Dewey and Sid connect with that phone call. That's the first time we see Sid, and I get Sid from that. Seeing Dewey and where he is, I love the little touches. I love Tatum and her ashes,
Tatum ashes,
like on the and I love
the real photo of him and Courtney Cox together.
Yeah, the selfie that's all like that. But I also love the fact that he's still on his game, and he's older. It's still Dewey, undeniably, but he can't be the court jester forever. You know, he can't be doofy. he has and given everything that's happened to him, I like this turn that it takes for him, for as an opportunity for David Arquette as an actor, but also as the character, because people, sorry folks, this happens to people who can be really kind of like idealistic and shiny, bright, happy people after a couple decades of hard living. Maybe life doesn't treat them, the best way, and maybe they're just trying to collect themselves, and maybe it's only a transitional point. But I like seeing him, I don't know if the grizzled is the right word, but I just like seeing him drier, and I like seeing him just a little more practical and aged, because also the second he invites Richie and Sam in and starts asking like, who's he, and getting just like, the rap sheet,
Like
the
he just
background,
starts.
Richie, he just goes right into it, and I'm just like, yes, of course you're going to be there. That's the way you're going to think after 4 fucking movies of this. And especially, you're not going to worry about like exchanging pleasantries given everything that's happened to you. So I am on board with this. You're going to call Sid. You're going to text Gail because it's too scary to call because of everything that happened to you. And then I love that the first thing Gail does when she sees him is kind of lose herself, almost like, miss her step conversationally, and leave Sam, goes over to him and just hits him. Like,
Yep.
you put it in a text. And I'm like, this is how people act, and that's how Gail would act. And Dewey's like, and I'm just like, this is their relationship. I love it. I fucking love it. If they were to go the route that has been written for them, this is the way those characters would be interacting.
Absolutely.
And that's why I don't. And then yes.
Honestly, of the 3 of them, I think Dewey is written the most interestingly. And also, not like it's a fucking contest, but I get the most from David Arquette in this movie. He gets so much to chew on, though, because like you were talking about where the character, is like, they did a really good job of writing where he's at, but also still keeping him Dewey, but just this version of, and he plays it so like threads the needle perfectly, where it's not just like, well, now I'm playing grizzled tough guy, I'm playing grizzled Dewey, and it's still there a bit. And I sometimes I get emotional just watching it. Do you ever, I know the answer already, but do you ever watch an actor just so perfectly nail a beat or a moment that it makes you, even if the scene isn't emotional, you just get emotional because they're just doing it so well? It's such a dumb moment, but because he's watched Gail's show before, so it's not a surprise. But he gets his little bowl of cereal, he sits down, and the second he turns on TV and he sees her, he goes like, like he gets like it's you probably do this 4 or 5 times a week, and he still perks up the second he sees her on TV, and he's alone. He doesn't need to perform for anyone.
I know.
Also, there's another beat that he did in that scene with that really got me. Where it's when he's like, and he's serious. He's like, Sid, do you have a gun? She's like, of course, I'm Sidney Prescott. Of course I have a fucking gun. And he laughs. Like he goes, like, oh, that's my old pal Sid. And immediately goes back to like concern. And it happens within a half a second. He's fucking great in this movie.
Yeah, he is.
Oh my God. David Arquette is like, to me, one of the MVPs of this movie.
I've heard so many people complain about the way his execution, shall we say, was written, his kill scene. And the fact that this seems to be like the major point of contention. This is the 5th movie. He should know better than to go back alone and shoot Ghostface in the head and everything like that. That moment works for me.
It does
yeah.
It's not the 5th movie after a year. It's the 5th movie after like 11 years for them. So sure, he'd forget. I mean, I remember getting mad in the theater when he shoots Ghostface in the chest and then walks away. I'm like, the fuck are you fucking doing? But then he stops at the elevator, and I'm like, oh, I'm frustrated. Like, I like it more now. My first viewing, I didn't like it. I'm like, oh God, we're creating him stuff. Like, we're doing the thing, and then he remembers to shoot him in the head just to go back so he can die and die alone. But once I get over the shock of that, it actually, the scene does unfold rather organically. Also, he's not a young man. He doesn't have like
Yeah.
all the rules at the top of his head. At least he has the good sense to like, I don't know, when you watch it now and you're not in theaters, when you watch it, like the way it unfolds in real time, it's only a matter of seconds when he gets to the elevator door and
Yes.
stops. This
Yeah.
isn't like 2 hours later. It's like 11 seconds later.
And plus, like the fact that like your main
And he's
priority after the offense is down is to get the civilians out, like the people who have already
yeah.
been wounded by it. That all makes perfect sense to me. I have no problem with that. And the other thing, and this may be a little dark,
Okay.
but I get the sense that at this point, he's made his peace. At least he got to see Gail again. He got to speak his truth. I cry in that scene. I might cry now talking about it, but just all the unspoken stuff, all the stuff that he kind of like just took on and picked up and carried away with him when he left, because he felt like she left him but never shared that with her. And the fact that I've seen it happen too often, particularly, sorry bro, but in in heterosexual dynamics where there's a relationship and it ends, and too often I've seen, because it's not like it always happens this way, but too often I've been on, on one side where a girlfriend of mine doesn't know why he left or what, it's just over. And or a guy like a coworker or somebody who I'm talking to who's just kind of like, I just couldn't handle it, so I just bailed. And I'm like, you just like, so you didn't even tell her like you're broken up or anything like that? And it's just like, no, she'll figure it out, like that kind
Oof.
of or I just couldn't look her in the eye, like whatever case they make in their heads. And I'm not saying all straight guys are like this, and I'm not saying all straight girls are like, or straight women or whatever are like this, but it felt familiar. I was just kind of like, I've seen this before. Like he's just kind of took it all on and just figured, I'm just going to go be, destructive on my own. Like I'll just be fine. I'll just take myself out of the equation and then her life will be perfect. Never thinking you're going to fuck her up. So I like her. That's why I like her response. I like his response. But they have kind of like made, like that reconnection, and he got to see her again. And I even feel it now. I kind of felt it the first time. It made me wonder, just the way in the phone call with Sid, the way she tells him, you take care, okay? And I'm like, because that might be the last time you talk to him. It always might be the last time you talk to him. Well, there's a ghost face killer. Now I watch it and I'm just kind of like, cinematically, good for you, movie, because I'm watching the last conversation that's ever gonna happen between Sid and, I almost called him David, Dewey, between Sid and Dewey, and watching that character say goodbye to him in a way that feels like she's saying goodbye, even though the character doesn't know it. I don't mind it. I'm just kind of like, oh god.
That's another callback, by the way, to Star Wars, because Luke and Leia never truly ever meet up. They have the one conversation, but it's not,
You need to make that video. Just make a video. Just clip. There was one thing while we're on Dewey that I noticed. It was a parallel between Halloween 2018 and Five Cream, is that we've got the first legacy character, I believe, reintroduced, and they're in isolation. It's Lori and it's Dewey, and they're older and they're tougher than we remember them and everything like that. And they sit across from two young people who think they know who might think they know like what they're getting into, and they haven't got the fucking clue. And the person's giving it to them straight. This is what you need to, beware of. This is exactly the way it goes down in this franchise. And they both end the scene saying time's up.
Oh.
Yeah. I was just gonna like, yeah.
Well, again, if you respond like that, can't be an accident,
right?
The only part of it that's an accident is that Dewey originally did show up in the movie earlier, but they cut his scene out, which I think wisely, because that's a great, like, it feels more organic to the story. If you're starting following Sam, you get to Dewey that way. Originally, he was just in the bar with the other kids.
Yeah,
and then he's just sort of there.
Kyle Gallner, like, or getting beat up by Kyle Gallner. Well, that's the thing. I saw that, and I remember that because I saw the deleted scenes not recently. I think I saw it like maybe a couple months ago. And I didn't really feel any of them were necessary. The only one that I'm missing, and I understand why it might have been plucked out just for pacing, because that is, you know, a concern. I think this movie is paced incredibly well. That said,
Dewey and Judy.
Yeah, that's the one.
But again, that's actually 2 scenes before his introduction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I understand why that can't be like his first scene. Although, but I don't know.
But it's kind of cool to see them together.
Yes, and to see her
and she calls him
respect. Yeah,
she calls him sheriff.
Yes, Jesus Christ. And it's just nice to know that there is somebody, because the way he describes it to Gail, it does sound like he was asked to and he was dismissed and like he's kind of forgotten. So to see Marley Shelton with her big eyes and, you know,
she still remembers.
Yes, to see and still regards him with that same kind of respect. It's just it gives just an extra little punch to my gut for her character. Like, oh my gosh, I love seeing you like this, Judy, and I love seeing that Dewey gets to actually experience respect somewhere. Because you know, I get that he isn't in his daily practice.
Yeah,
really feeling on top of the world or feeling like, you know, the greatest guy or like a sheriff at all.
I know we're talking about Dewey, but I just want to say there's 2 little moments. It's when the kids are talking outside of school and they're like, oh yeah, your mom fucking interrogated me this morning. And then Wes looks over at his mom and she does this little like this little shoulder shimmy wiggle, like, hey, I'm a cop, you're my son. It was so Judy.
Yeah.
And then also after she talks to Sam in the hallway about like, you know, maybe she could get to people who care about this community. And then she turns and does this like, I'm the sheriff and I'm proud and I did the thing. I'm like, oh my God. You're still you.
That's another thing. It's still Judy, and we've only had 1 movie with her prior to this one. And I love the fact that like that's Judy, but it's an older Judy. It's Judy with a harder edge. It's a darker world now.
She's
a
mom now. She's got responsibilities at her job.
But the thing is, she was a mom before, but he was in grade school. So I don't know. True. Yeah. So, but now.
But also having a teenager will harden you. Maybe.
Yeah, I would imagine so. That's why I don't want kids. But I get perpetual infants like my cat.
No, I just buy her as a generation, like a 10 years older, just version.
Absolutely,
like she's owning her sheriffness.
And they should be different. They should be changed, and in slight ways that give me the character, but also just kind of like, but look where they are now, and it's like, thank you. Anyway, so Dewey, yeah, go ahead.
One little thing. The first, like, I swear to God, like 2 or 3 times I watched this movie in theaters. I saw it in theaters 4 times. When she's on the phone with Ghostface and they're like, Sheriff Judy.
Yeah.
And they do it twice. And I'm like, I know this from somewhere. Where is this? It's not even Judy, but that inflection, what is that from? And then like a month or 2 later, I was just driving. And then I just heard Joan Cusack go, everyone knows who you are, Woody. Oh, I'm like, every time I watch that movie, I just presume it's got to be Amber, right? Like she as a kid grew up watching Toy Story 2. Probably watched it a bunch of times.
And so when she hears that the sheriff prefers animated movies,
Judy.
Again,
I've never seen an interview, but it's so Toy Story 2, right?
I wonder if Roger Jackson, or if it's just a kind of happenstance that gives us glee. Yeah,
because people talk about like the odd pronunciation, but I'm like, it's so Toy Story 2. Like it has to be, right?
I never
it
thought
has
of that.
To be.
I never thought of that, but I don't think I'll ever unhear it that way now, which is good because it works. Because I have weird things going on there because I am imagining Amber, you know, just kind of being out of her mind and relishing everything. But then I'm also looking at Marley Shelton gives a really, really good performance. Like, is this concerned mom? Just like, I'll do anything. And I'm like, fuck. Like, it's definitely, I think, the stakes, the fucking motherfucking stakes. Like, there's fun to be had in this movie, but there's also, if you do love these characters, I think this movie serves them well
It
and serves
does.
them to you. But okay, so I was going to get dark.
Wait, are we still going back to Dewey? Is this Dewey
Yeah,
dark?
I
Okay.
have to close the door on that.
No, good. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Because there's a part of me that thinks, like, because he had the exchange with Gail that he did and is kind of like made peace and everything like that, but also knows they're probably not going to reconcile. Like, they're probably past that point. There's a part of me that thinks it's almost worth risking his life to go back and do that.
Absolutely.
And if he does get taken out, he's kind of okay with it. And it breaks my heart a little bit, because it's something I read, and maybe it's there, maybe it's not. I would love to have a conversation with David Arquette at some point and find out, was that in your performance at all? Was there a kind of reckless abandon to, you know, in the face of your own mortality? Like, if I die today, it might be a relief. You know, there's not really anything on the horizon for me. I got to see Gail, and I got to talk to Sid, and I got to, you know, fight Ghostface and save some people.
Yeah,
Maybe this is the end of the line for me, you know.
it's in there. I forget the exact
An
line.
element.
If they're like, "Who cares?" He's like, "I care," or like whatever. But it's the elevator door where everything you're saying, I'm like, it's in that one line reading.
Exactly. And then every time, because I always cry when Dewey dies in any movie. I mean, I don't cry in the first movie. I shouldn't say that, because in the first movie, when he comes out with the knife in his back, like, I'm just like, no, you know.
No, but my girlfriend and I in high school clutched each other's arms in Scream 2.
Scream, I'm walking my mom
on the glass, and he
and
slides.
Gail, a lot of it is Courtney too, like Gail being on the
Yeah.
other side of that glass, sliding down with him, and the music is perfect. And it's just tragedy, it's opera, it's just the height of melodrama, but it's played so earnestly and so raw, beyond earnest, raw, that I'm right there. And I know he survives, and I don't care. I still cry at that moment every time I see it. And I don't think, does he die? He doesn't die in Scream 3. And he doesn't die in Scream 4, Forum either, does he? So that was the last time he died. But anyway, so seeing him, but I remember even feeling it, like thinking, this is different. This doesn't feel like a Scream. He's not going to recover. You can't put him on a gurney at the end of the movie and have him give you a thumbs up after that.
No.
Like, it was so clear. And the fact, and there, I think I was also crying because that line that Amber delivers, "It's an honor," hurt, because in your own sick, twisted way, you know what I'm feeling. Because you are a fan of the franchise. Fuck you. It's like watching Star Wars and wanting to be Emperor Palpatine and wanting to, like, fucking shoot, knowing who the Luke Skywalker of your particular movie is, and wanting to just fucking put, like, lightning through them and everything like that, and derive pleasure from it because you're an asshole. So it's not.
I felt guilt. I felt guilt because I remember watching Scream 3 going, these three leads just gonna survive this fucking movie? Like, okay, I love them, but like, we gotta have some stakes here, right? And then they survived. And then the fourth movie, and I'm like, all right, we got our big three, and I love them, but like, we gotta do something with them, right? And I'm like, God, they're gonna fucking survive again. Like these three like superheroes that just seemingly get stabbed a million times. Like I'm not saying I want them to die, but like, so many people die, but for some reason these three just don't. And I remember going into 5, not even really thinking about it, but going like, I wonder. But like, I didn't really want it.
No.
But the second he was going down the hallway, I'm like, oh God, they're probably gonna do it. And then the second it happened, I'm like, I know I said I wanted this, but I really didn't. Oh God damn it.
Yeah.
like I instantly felt like regret forever, like wishing this upon any of our three. I just felt guilt. I didn't like it. I mean, it was great. It was very effective, but I felt the same way, the exact same way. Foolishly, I remember watching The Dark Knight Rises, going like, oh my God, we're getting Bane, like a good Bane. Oh my God, you know, like, I love Nightfall. I would love to see like in a movie, like fucking Bane break Batman's back.
Oh, and then
during the fight when he lifts up Christian Bale, I was just like, oh god, oh god, oh god, oh god, oh god, oh
I
god, oh god. And
know.
when he did it, I was like, I didn't want that. Like I thought I wanted it, but I didn't fucking want it.
Like,
And I felt the
your
same way with
your
Dewey.
mind wanted it as a
But
moviegoer, but your heart and your guts, yeah, you feel it. That's the thing, is like it's one thing to want it in a cerebral kind of like, well, I mean,
on
it makes the
paper.
most, yeah, it makes the most sense as far as the direction of the franchise for that to happen at some point. So come on, movie. And then when it finally happens, the gut punch. Yeah.
Yeah.
But also I remember having it like a mini breakdown in the theater the first time I saw it. And I couldn't stop crying, and thank God, like, it led directly from his kill scene to Gail's discovery and everything like that, in the slow-mo and with the oh god. And I was crying through all that. I was crying the whole time she was talking to Sam, and that Sam gets to tell her, and she's just like, I never should have let him go. And she's just like, if you hadn't, then my sister wouldn't be alive. And they just have this very quiet, like almost exchange of souls moment where they understand, like, okay, I recognize you've lost someone significant to you, but if you hadn't, I would have lost someone significant to me. And Gail's acknowledgement of that, it's all done wordlessly too. Just Gail looking at her and just being glad on one hand, in a very, like, there's a sliver of, at least Dewey didn't die for nothing, but also I just lost my best friend. So maybe I'll take more comfort in that a little bit later.
Yes.
Because I need to be where I'm at right now, but I understand where you're at right now. You didn't suffer a tremendous loss. Good for you. And she's almost holding her breath. It doesn't look like Courtney Cox is breathing in that moment.
No, that I mean, first of all, you know how I feel about movies glossing over grief.
Yeah.
And the fact that, like, the next thing we do is, and it's the next day.
Yeah.
So how many hours has she just been sitting there stewing in it? So the fact that they even wrote that, I'm like, I like this. Thank you, movie. Because I have a huge disconnect now with movies where that just gloss over that.
We're not going to let her die for nothing. And then all of a sudden we're triumphant, but
right. Cyclops who? Like,
exactly. But also, but just to close the door, because I was crying, and then all of a sudden Sydney comes on screen, and I thought, no. And I couldn't just watch them sit and hold hands in silence for however long, in real time, however long they could have before Sam makes the decision to leave. Once the movie kind of starts to get going again, I remember I had to, like, shake it off, because I'm like, shit, the fucking movie's going, and I can't hit pause. I can't, fuck. I could cry for another 2 hours.
I had to get used to Sid in that scene, because, again, like, I had to adjust to where she's at and not just my idea of where her head is at. Because I'm like, Dewey died. Shouldn't you be more upset? However, two things. One, Gail was married to him, so she's, as a friend, going like, oh, like, I kind of need to be here for you. And sometimes people tend to make a show of themselves, and she's like, no. I am sad, but I'm here for Gail. Because Gail's been on, like, a slightly heavier journey, maybe. And then two, there's a killer on the loose. So, like,
time is of the essence.
Let's get down to business.
Yeah.
I can be sad, but also let's get to it. So I'm fine with it.
Because this killer's going to kind of be banking on our inactivity. Like, if we just sit around, that's an advantage to this ghost face. Yeah.
I do have a few things I want to close the door on with Dewey and Gail.
Okay.
It's a little thing, but when I just appreciate the fact that, Dewey told them, I'm not helping you, Richie and Sam. And I love that he calls Sid to warn her, but she's the one who's like, well, I'm really glad they have you to protect them. And I'm just like, Sydney's the one who, like, if that phone call didn't happen, like,
yeah.
And she doesn't even know the help that she just gave all of them.
Yeah.
I just fucking love that beat.
Yeah.
And she remembers, like, literally Scream 3, you're alone with a killer in the soundstage, and she's just like, Dewey, like, that's the guy who's gonna help. Like, and he'll always be
Okay,
Um,
gonna be limping like quickly towards you to your rescue. Did it in
yeah.
Scream 2? Did it in Scream 3? Yeah.
Um, this is a little thing that always gets me. Is the in the hospital scene when he gets killed, the glass case that Ghostface gets thrown into
Mhm.
is filled with teddy bears and a banner that says "Thank you." So for the rest of the scene, when Ghostface falls down, and there's a few other shots once they get up again, "Thank you" is in the background. So like when Dewey's dying, like it is a, and the little thank you just gets me. Like, look for it the next time. It'll make you cry.
I'm already gonna be crying, but yeah, that'll make me cry harder. Oh my god.
Like a bunch of shelves break, but one thing that doesn't break is the thank you banner.
Fuck! I'm getting so bummed out now. Uh, I know. Speaking of being bummed out about Dewey's death, I'll talk about that if you're after you wrap up. Like, what else do you have to say about that?
But no, we were talking about when Dewey and Gale met up. It was just
Yes.
one of the things that gets me right in the feels is she's talking, and I fucking hate that expression, but it's been so normalized. Um, but it gets me in the heart. She's talking to Sam. She looks over at Dewey, so she's looking at Dewey and only half listening. She's like, "Who are you?" She's like, "Gail Riley."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh, she said Gail Riley, son of a bitch." My
Yeah.
heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then also, I love that she's fucking text me. She's like, "Well, you were on the air." She's like, "How did you know?" And I flash back to like, "So you do watch the show?" This is how you call back without drawing attention to yourself. It's how it's supposed to be done.
That's
folks.
beautiful.
I love it.
Beautiful.
Oh,
I'm
it just makes me happy.
I've heard what I would call overt criticisms of the fact that Amber is the one to take Dewey out. There are a lot of people who are upset about it. There are a lot of people who think these are the worst ghost face killers of the franchise, and I'm just like, shut up.
No.
But but also, I mean, like, worst.
Have they not seen Scream 3?
Also, also just like worse. Like, what is worst? Like, I mean, and these words become meaningless because it's like you know me and how
Culture
I feel
has
about.
become too hyperbolic when it comes to movies, and I fucking don't like it.
I know we speak in superlatives and we lean on ranking too much. I understand. I mean, if some people like ranking, I know you do. Great, awesome,
it's fun.
But it's almost like as a card carrying fan, you have to.
No, no.
At will, like, you know, like if somebody asks you, so what's your ranking of that franchise? It's like, I don't know. I mean, unless I already have one of like my holy trinity of slashers, I have that, you know, my Freddy, my
it's
Jason,
okay to
and
have a
my Michael. Yeah. But at the same time, yeah, and it is okay to have a favorite, but at the same time, it's okay not to. It's okay to like all the things, you know, at varying levels, and not have to like examine it or break it down for everybody else. Like, but I mean, as horror fans, I understand, certainly. I mean, that's what we're doing right now. The the investment in the thing to break it apart, to examine it, and to explore. But I think both can be okay. You can be a ranker, you can be not a ranker, and we can all exist. We can coexist peacefully and enjoy the conversation anyway. That said, I kind of felt like, now that I know it's Amber, I'm upset, but I'm upset because I'm supposed to be.
Yes.
It's not like there's a ghost face it could be, and I'd be like, yes, that feels right.
When you say that was my first response. Is like, well, was it supposed to be like Gale or someone close to him? Like, what the fuck?
It should have been Sid, should have been Ghostface, and she should have taken Dewey out. And it's like, make that make sense.
All the ghost faces in 1 through 4 have some sort of beef or connection to Sydney.
Right.
And then our ghost faces, we'll get to it. But like, we're centered on Sam here.
Yeah.
There's no like if you told me like, oh, it's bullshit that like Amber killed fucking Sydney, I go, okay, like I'll hear you out, because what's the relation? Nothing. But with Dewey, there's never been a relation. So shut the fuck up. How about that?
Also, I mean, again, like, maybe I'm just too old, and I just don't think like going down in a blaze of glory ain't always the way it happens. I've experienced a lot of mortality in my life, and let me tell you, sometimes you just die. Sometimes you just go, and it's not ideal, you know? I mean, it's supposed to upset you. It's supposed to feel like something's missing, and I'm not happy about it. I mean, I I don't want to try and even speculate about a better death for Dewey, aside from just like growing old, you know, and living happily, rediscovering his smile, and dying surrounded by those who mean the most to him in peace.
Oh,
But that's not Scream, you know,
no.
like so. And also, Amber says it. Our movie has fucking stakes, and it's like, well, yeah, you do. You're an asshole for thinking that and for behaving this way, but you're right.
Not only is she right, but I also would say in the bigger picture, like I was saying, like you can't have these three just keep surviving Scream 3 and then Scream 4. And then if they all survive Scream 5, like I'd just be like, all
What's the
right.
point? What's the
Yeah.
point? Yeah.
Who's the fodder? Who are the other characters that we all know are gonna die, but these three aren't? Like, yeah. Lastly, I just want to point out it was I can't remember what interview it was. I don't remember the exact quote, but I remember I think Courtney Cox and David Arquette was talking about the scene where they first reunite.
Mhm.
And you know, at this point in their life, their marriage is in the past. But like they did like that first take, and it felt like they're doing the lines, but like it felt pretty raw. And like apparently the story I heard was like they called cut and they're like, all right, that one was for us. Let's go again. Like, and I always wonder, like, is the take I'm seeing, like, how much of it is from like that first take? You know?
I wonder, like, because I mean, again, to look into the eyes of someone to whom you were once married, who you've had children and everything like that, and to play, you know, characters who have split up and now have, I guess, feel the freedom.
Mhm.
At least one of them does, and that's Gail. But like that will prompt a freedom from Dewey to speak plainly and to just kind of put it all out there on Front Street, like listen, and even just to speak exasperatedly. Sometimes it doesn't matter what the lines are. It's what I mean, I've experienced this in scenes that I've interacted with people where something just hits you.
Mhm.
But a big, I mean, there people have triggers too. Different people have different kinds of triggers where you just kind of like, wow, didn't know I felt that way about that. um I mine is hugs. Like I've been in scenes where I've done my preparation, I'm doing my work, I'm not feeling particularly emotional, and whether it's scripted or not, someone fucking hugs me and I fall to pieces. I think that's a huge trigger for me. And on
Mhm.
stage, I don't know about life, maybe in life, I don't know. But on stage, so I don't know, just like I can't imagine what it must be like to, in this franchise, play these characters, meet each other through playing these characters with each other, and to even have Wes Craven be, as I understand it, kind of the bastion of the relationships, kind of being like, yeah, I think you two would like actually, you know, you should ask her out. Hey, he's been talking about it. You should probably, you know, keep him in mind, you know, kind of thing. The facilitator. And now you're playing this legacy movie, these two unforgettable epic characters that you have, you know, and one of them is going to die and you both are split. I mean, all of it, it's just all gotta, and they're both good actors on top of it. They both are susceptible, and I feel like if something came in that would work for the scene, they wouldn't be like, oh, no, that's too personal. I don't want to, I've seen that actor too. And it's like, fuck you, act. Let it in. And I feel like their susceptibility is admirable and palpable also on screen. So I'm just saying I concur. I'm just agreeing emphatically because I'm really excited that we're talking about this.
Acting.
Acting.
So let's put a pin in this whole conversation and come back in part 2 because I have so much more to say.
Me too.
So yeah, join us in a few more days and we'll be back. Part 2.